Mateo's not here. All right, it's 6:03 on May 22nd, 2025, and I'm calling this meeting of the Conservation Commission, Shutesbury Conservation Commission to order. This meeting's being recorded. I texted Bob because I think he's coming tonight. Scott's not coming tonight. So maybe we wait just a few more minutes and see if Bob shows up.
Is Scott caught up in the Fish and Wildlife Service government evacuation of employees?
Yeah. He chose to retire. So he's retiring May 31st, like right around town meeting that weekend.
So is he still working?
He is. So he said that this is his last big trip. You know how he traveled all the time for work a lot. So
At
this
this
is his
point, it
last.
probably doesn't matter what he does.
Yeah, I know. I think I figured he probably wants to go to some of all those offices where he's been working forever, like
Yeah.
in Virginia and, North Carolina, wherever he goes, and just say goodbye, like kind of. So that he listed all the states he's going to this week and next week.
Oh,
and it's big.
he's going on around the world.
He is. He's doing it. Yeah, that's what it looked like. He's like my last big whirl around, of all these different places. So
I don't know if I'd want to do that because none of those employees know what's going to happen next.
I know I haven't talked to him because he was saying that I think it was last week they had heard big rumors that last week was going to be a big like receiving of notices, like a whole lot of people
Except
were
the
going
court
to
put it off.
find out about it. Did they?
They put a little stay on that. It'll pop up again. They just didn't follow protocol.
Oh,
So they got a little reprieve, but they're all sitting around. What do you do when
just waiting?
Oh,
Yeah, they must
you're
know.
twirling in your chair and you're having another coffee and
It's horrible though, because you don't know. I mean,
yeah, no.
I suppose maybe certain people are like, oh, definitely me, but
doesn't create the incentive to work when you think you're going to be on your way out,
That's what I mean. Yeah.
It's just it just hangs over everything,
Yeah.
Even the people that took the out, like Scott, I mean, he was lucky. They
had the time, yeah.
got a nice out, but not if that wasn't really what you had, in plans.
Yeah, I don't think he was quite ready to retire, but at least he's like far enough in his career that his big job probably is done, and now he'll do something else that's smaller. But like, say you're like 28 years old and you feel like, oh, this is where I want to be. I've been here 4 years or something. I want to be here for another 20. And
yeah,
that's
well, it's really unclear. Some of the hatcheries in the field, they're big hatcheries. They grow fish 24/7. You got animals you're keeping. There's 2 people left. That's not a good formula.
And it doesn't seem like it's showing up in, at least what I don't think it's showing up in the workforce, like at the unemployment rate, or you know what I mean? Like where are these people going? Like,
well, they're trickling in. They're trickling in. So they didn't all retire on the same day. Some of them get to go at the end of the month. Some of them get to go at the end of the year. They had different packages they could negotiate. But what is it showing up? It's not in the news.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not seeing it. Like, it seems like every time I turn around, they're, what I do learn from my kids, sending me stuff is that, they're doing this or they're doing that, or this agency's gone or that agency's gone. Like, but how come it's not showing up in the unemployment rate? Like that's the part I don't see.
It's a trickle.
Yeah, so that's the part I don't understand.
I feel like also in the end, like local government, like we always have trouble finding people, constantly trying to fill positions working for Amherst in different areas. And so in a way, I'm kind of like just waiting. I'm like, so where are all these, 35-year-old people with master's degrees who want to come work? Because come on, come on, we're waiting for you. So
probably
hopefully
just send a memo over to the regional office in Hadley. The phone will start ringing.
You would think, you would definitely think. Anyway, all right, so we should look at the regulations for a little bit.
Okay.
I will pull them up.
I'll call them up on my computer.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right. I think this is where we were, coordination with other boards. We had finished small
Yeah.
project permits and whatever. So this is where we were, and I did read through these sections, and so starting with that first one, section 11, I had no comments on it. So why don't you guys just, yell out if you have comments on any of these sections?
Okay.
And I don't know if, have you guys read them before, or should we go through them? How do you want to do it?
I'd say let's just go through them again, because what you read and understand, oftentimes, I don't. But when it comes to this coordination with other boards, I get questions a lot from people who say, I'm doing something and I got I got my paperwork through FERCog. And then what do I do with what do I do with it now? If does the Concom need to look at it, or when I'm done, do I need to send something to the Concom? I get weird questions like that, and I don't think this really answers that clearly.
Hmm.
The protocol of how you do something that crisscrosses on the permitting requirements.
Um,
It's usually something, with building.
yeah. Um, so are you talking about something that is a wetland permit, like a NOI or an RDA, and they're trying to figure
Well,
out who needs to review it?
there's the two questions. One is, I don't know what they say to them at FERCog, but they'll be like, do I have to talk to you? And there's obvious when there's no, they're out in the middle of a field. It's like, I don't know. But I'm not sure if this is clear that. And then if we were involved somehow, because you're near water, like the project that's coming up for discussion, for an RDA later,
Mhm.
that house is near the lake, but he's gonna have a building permit, right? So they're gonna probably get a FERCog building permit, and then you get the electronic thing that you sign off on for
Mhm.
Concom. But I don't think that's clear to them that that whole portion is electronic. Because then at the other end, they have to have someone come look at it. I think there's a little hitch in the giddy up there in terms of what do I have to go do?
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah. How do you address that?
this really just addresses if we get an application, making sure that we share it with everybody.
Right.
You're talking more a little bit about FERCog and people letting people know whether or not they need to come see the Conservation Commission. Is that what you're
Yeah,
wondering about?
both ways, like if they start with FERCog, great. And then they're supposed to like double back and make sure they don't have a Concom problem. And if they do, at the end, then the question is, like, geez, what do I do? You know, am I talking to Concom or do I go back to FERC? The pathways for how you get your information where and what qualifies as a checkoff isn't clear, because we do this stuff with FERCog electronically, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're still doing paper with us.
Well, that's because I guess you can think of it as FERCog looks at the entire project and sort of manages all the permits that need to go with that one project. So the way it should work is if FERCog finds out somebody needs a building permit, they really need to build it into their spreadsheet and make sure that all the groups, all the boards and committees in Shutesbury know about this project. And then each group where there is jurisdiction does their own thing. Like we get our own paper permit and all the rest because that project is within our jurisdiction. Then we go back to the FERCog thing and just check off that we did our thing. And the zoning board should be doing the same, and the planning board should be doing the same. They go through their permitting process, and when they're all satisfied, you know, they've issued their permit. They go back to the FERCog thing and they check their one little box, like, okay, planning board is satisfied. And the FERCog, the way it works in a lot of towns is you don't issue that final building permit until all other permits have been done. And so like I always compare to Amherst, but in Amherst, in the planning department, there's like a giant checklist for every project. And when somebody comes in with a project, they, in that situation, they say, oh, looks like your project needs to go to planning, needs to go to Concom, needs to go to the septic people, like, you know, whatever it needs to go to, you need to go talk to those people, get all your permits, come back, and then once everything's checked off that you need, we will actually issue you a building permit. Like you can't get the building permit until you've gotten all your other stuff. And I think that's what FERCog is trying to do. I think it's just a little more difficult on a county level because they don't have as much communication with the different departments within the towns that need that, you know, that are saying, hey, we need to be included on this. I think sometimes they're kind of guessing like, oh, this project, I mean, if it's a lake one, they're going to probably send me something because they'll be like, oh, this looks like it would be in the Concom jurisdiction. I think there are projects, and this was something that Miriam used to do a lot, she would just go into the FERCog database sometimes, I think, and just almost look a little for projects that maybe up at FERCog, they just said, oh, that doesn't need Concom, but in the end it does, you know, like so then we didn't get notified about it. But anyway, that's how it works. And, you know, they've certainly let me know about projects where I've gone and been like, there's no wetlands anywhere. Like, no, we don't need an application for this. And you can note that in the FERCog thing too. But I don't know if that helps, Jan.
Yeah, I kind of understand the process, but somehow it doesn't get communicated to these individuals very clearly.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
that's FERCog's fault.
It's Biden's fault. I don't know whether there's something you could write in there that's that would reinforce they come back to us.
Well, this again is really just, I feel like this section is applications that we get. We are required under our regulations to make them available to all these other boards and then take comment on any application that we get before we should be issuing any kind of decision. We wait 14 days. That's what it says down there, to see if the planning board or somebody has a comment on our application. I don't think this section really is meant to get into that whole process. Because we shouldn't be regulating that process. These regulations are strictly for the wetlands part of a project, not, you know, every other aspect to a project.
I know, it's just that we're associated with some of the confusion that winds up coming out of it.
Well, how do most people approach the Concom? Do they reach out to you, Beth? Do they reach out to, I mean, it seems like it's just different ways. Like sometimes there's voicemails that, you know, sometimes they, you know, that are left for Concom. Sometimes it seems like they contact Mateo. Like, I think, is that what you're saying, Jen? Is like, there's just no uniform process as to how people reach out and then to concerning a project, and then is that what you're saying, Jan?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that is, maybe that's where we really are. Uh, and I'm caught with my pants down because I can't remember what we have on the website. But we do direct people to Mateo. I do anyway for paperwork. Like when they say, what do I have to do? I'm like, go call him.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's the
maybe
way
there
it
should be
should be.
something
That's
on the
his
website
job.
if do we have something on the website that tells them to do that and also to go to FERCog if it's a building thing?
Um, we, we definitely have on the website, we have even all the documents on the website, and there's certainly pages on, if you need to file an RDA, this is what you need to do. And then, when you go, it's got Mateo's contact information, and there's the general conservation phone number, that's on kind of
Yeah,
the larger web page for people to definitely call, or if they go to the web page, they would be directed to Mateo's email,
right.
or the land use clerk email. And that's really where it should go. And that's all fine. It's and
And I suppose he tells them the order of events that they should be doing if they talk to him.
yeah, cool, because he does planning board and ZBA also. He's land
Yeah,
use clerk for all three, so he's keeping track of the requirements that are needed for if you are required, if you need if you need to go to the planning board, like for a special permit. And ZBA, I guess, is the special permits, but like an A&R and the different requirements that the planning board has. He's That's his job. He should be on top of that, and also on the ZBA. So if somebody comes with a project, part of his job is to let them know which permits they need.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, maybe that's already covered. I don't know. It's just the questions I get walking down
yeah.
the street, Hey, what do I do?
Well, if it's a wetland thing, direct them to our webpage and to Mateo, and that
Yeah,
would that would be the where they should go. And then if they're asking you more about like a building permit, that's the FERCog. But if it's zoning and planning and all that, that's still town hall. That's still Mateo.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
All right. So then so this is just saying electronic copy for these folks. And an adjoining municipality. And the applicant gets copies of the comments. And we give them 14 days. All seems good to me. Decisions. The commission in an appropriate case combined decision issued under the state and local. We can issue, the one permit, the one determination would be for both under the state and the local regulations. Whoops. And we need to do that within 21 days of closing the public hearing. After the public hearing, we need to determine activities which are subject to application for land and water uses which will result are likely to have a significant individual or cumulative effect upon the values. The commission shall issue or deny a permit for the activities requested. So that's kind of saying what we base our decision on. The commission shall take into account the extent to which the applicant has avoided, minimized, and mitigated any such effect. And that's kind of the common language that's in the Wetlands Protection Act too. These are the things you're looking for in the application, and that's what you base your determination on. This sentence, I don't think is plausible. It said the commission also shall take into account any loss, degradation, isolation, and replacement or replication of such resource areas elsewhere in the community and the watershed resulting from past activities, whether permitted, unpermitted, or exempt, and foreseeable future activities. To me, there's no possible way that we could take all of those things into consideration when we're making a decision.
Especially the
take it,
foreseeable future activities part.
right? So we have a crystal ball. And like unpermitted stuff, and it's just kind of, it was just way beyond, so I took it out.
We
Um,
could just change it to forever and ever,
forever and ever.
moving right along.
That's bad, yeah. Um, approved permit shall impose conditions deemed by the commission to be necessary to protect the values of the bylaw. Permit shall prohibit any activity or portion thereof that cannot be conditioned to, to protect the values. That all is good. If a permit is denied, it shall be for one of the following reasons: failure to pay a fee, failure to meet requirements of the bylaw, um, failure to submit necessary information, failure to meet design specs, performance standards, or other requirements. That seems redundant to me, for failure to meet specified requirements, and then here it says for failure to meet or other requirements in the bylaw and its regulations.
Well, you could just add regulations above and get rid of that one.
I like getting rid of this one here. I like getting rid of 12.3.2 because I like that it says design specs, performance standards, or other requirements, and it's got bylaw and regulations. This one just doesn't say much and seems to be saying it below, don't you think?
Okay.
Failure to avoid, minimize, or mitigate unacceptable, significant, or cumulative effects upon the resource area values protected by the bylaw. Okay. In the event of a denial, we need to say why, and we need to send the applicant a notice. No work proposed shall commence until the order has been recorded. Either has been recorded, or if it's registered land in the registry section of land court. And then the applicant has to send us in writing that they recorded it. Amended order shall also be duly recorded within 30 days of issuance, and shall not take effect. So that's all the recording thing, which down here I took it out, it repeated itself, so I took that out. Unless extended or issued, they should be for 3 years, except special situations, we can do 5 years. Oh, here's Bob. Hey, Bob.
Hey there.
Um, so we're working on the decisions section of the regs. And where was I? Here they are. Order shall be signed by a majority of the commission, mailed to the applicant, certified mail or hand delivery. Hard copy, electronic copy of the application and permit shall be on file with the commission or in town hall. And then, like I said, this sort of repeated the recording stuff that was above. If work undertaken without the applicant first recording, we can issue an enforcement order. Failure to comply with the conditions in the permit, we can revoke or modify said permit. This little blurb about subdivisions. Unless otherwise specifically identified, orders of conditions approving subdivisions should apply only to roads, drainage, and related infrastructure on a definitive plan. They don't apply to the individual lots. Each lot has to file its own permit. That's typical for subdivision design.
Yeah, I think that's an outstanding idea. Back in the olden days, they would do subdivision. Everybody would have to get a partial for each individual house. So doing them individually is the way to go.
Yeah, and you get subdivisions where, they put in the roads and the infrastructure 20 years before particular lots ever get developed. That's what's been going on in Amherst.
Mm,
And so, by the time it's developed, the wetlands could have changed. And so it's better if each house has their own NOI. And then also it's better for when you're going and issuing certificates of compliance. Like if you can do it just for that house lot, it's also much cleaner.
absolutely.
Security. So this was just a sentence that just almost sort of described what security is. And I've been saying over and over, I feel like the regulations should just be what the rules are, not saying what it is. Like we know what the security is. So I took that out. It's a tool. Yes. Yep. But we don't need to say that in the regulations. So as part of a permit issued, in addition to security required by any other municipal, state board, agency, or official, the commission may require that the performance and observation of the conditions imposed one of the following methods. So it's sort of saying, so the security is, here's your permit. In order to make sure that you follow this permit, say it's a very large subdivision type permit, we're going to do one of these two things. One is a bond or deposit. So the applicant puts money down in a bond. So this is basically saying that the commission can use this technique if they want to. So they put down money. There's a written agreement, an arrangement. Let's see, they're sufficient in the opinion, the commission will be released in whole or part upon issuance. So once the project is complete and a certificate of compliance is issued, the person can come forward and ask for their money back. So that's one way of doing it with a bond. Another is by accepting conservation restriction, easement, or other covenant enforceable by law, recorded. It runs with the land, whereby the permit performed and observed before any lot may be conveyed other than by mortgage. See, this method shall only be used with consent of the applicant. That one's a little more confusing to me. Permit conditions shall be performed and observed before any lot may be conveyed other than by mortgage or deed. So I'm guessing that this is it's a temporary conservation restriction or easement or other covenant, again, during the time that the project is being built or done, that then once the conditions have been performed and observed and all the conditions have been met, that then the land can be sold and then this conservation restriction would go away. But it doesn't really say that clearly. So that one I have questions on.
Yeah, so if it's executed and recorded, it goes with the land. But I think what I think the confusion is the whereby the permit conditions to the other, to the end of that sentence. But otherwise it does go with, whatever they're doing, the restriction, easement, or other covenant. Um, I don't know what they mean by performed, because if it's a utility issue, then that has to be performed before it can then be conveyed to somebody else. I think that's what they're saying. So like if
Okay.
they're gonna put an easement in for, National Grid or whatever, or like a driveway, or so they have to have it in place before they can convey the lot to somebody else.
Okay.
Which I don't know what difference it makes, because if you record it, then it still conveys, whether it's done or not. It's not like it goes away.
Yeah, I don't.
I kind of read it
Further
as,
muddy the water, this method shall only be used with the consent of the applicant. Like,
Yeah,
what does that mean? I don't understand that part, but
I don't know. I don't understand how doing this would ensure that somebody would follow their permit conditions. I mean, it says it down here, whereby the permit conditions shall be performed and observed before any lot may be conveyed. So it would say in the conservation restriction or the easement that um it would have the order of conditions, but the order of conditions already go with they're already recorded with the property.
I mean, yeah, it does say under 14.2, the commission may require that the performance be secured wholly or in part by one of these methods described below, or the performance and observance of the conditions be secured wholly. So I don't know, that maybe that sentence is just being redundant right there, or that part of it is being redundant.
Yeah. I don't get it. I don't know how
I had a
doing
whole
this.
different take on it. I thought it was set up so that somebody wouldn't get halfway into a project and then bail on it. This would give the commission some kind of leverage over a project to require that a certain amount gets done. It is tricky and I'm not quite sure how to interpret it now that I've listened to how you had read it.
Yeah, I don't get it. By accepting a conservation restriction, just that, for example, by accepting a conservation restriction, running with the land to the benefit of the town of Shutesbury, whereby the permit conditions shall be performed and observed for any lot may be conveyed other than by mortgage deed.
So the way I pictured that is, say you had to do a sedimentation basin or something like that, that could be locked up as something that needs to be done prior to the person being able to sell the lot.
Hmm.
But it is not too intuitive, and that may be a misread.
It kind of doesn't say
Yeah.
that because it said maybe conveyed other than by mortgage deed. So if somebody buys it, that's the exception, right?
Yeah,
I don't know, I think you could eliminate that and still have the whole thing work, because if you put a conservation restriction or easement on something, it's going with the land. It's not going with the person, it's going with the land.
yeah. I agree. I'm confused as to why this is a method of making sure somebody does what they're supposed to do. I'm just gonna highlight it and see if I can figure out what it's trying to say. Like, I'll just see if it's in other regulations.
Yeah.
All right, in determining the amount of surety, the commission be guided by the following: commission's estimate of the cost to complete the work. Yep, say the person bailed. What's the cost that the town would have to take on to finish something, work permitted by or required through an enforcement order? A reasonable contingency in an amount to be determined. Fine. All security shall be bound by legal agreement approved by town council. Here comes Mateo. The return of the surety, say it's a bond maker after professional certifies in writing that everything was completed according to the order of conditions. And it has to be a written request made to the commission. You have opportunity to confirm in which deems necessary the work has occurred. Yeah, so they just have to show us, just like if you're getting a certificate of compliance, you have to have as-built and something showing that you met all the requirements. All right. Extension of permit. Determination or ORAD shall be valid for 3 years from the date and may not be extended or renewed.
Is that true? Is that true, given the extensions that were provided for COVID?
That's a totally different world.
Yeah, but it's there.
Yeah, so this is more, say there were none of those permit extensions that the state has issued for varieties of reasons, and they've
Right.
always done that forever, like when there's um when there's, I'm trying to say, like financial problems in the state, like way back, like in 2008, when there was a what am I trying to, we're like a recession.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the state wanted to promote building and stuff like that. So they did one of those permit extension acts. And those permit extension acts cover all permits, like building permits, zoning permits, like it's for everything. And they issue those every now and then. This is more in the world of, say there aren't any of those. There's no big overarching state permit extensions. There's simply how we do it, when how it's done under like the Wetlands Protection Act. Um, and that's what we would want to write in here. And one thing is that I believe ORADs are, you can extend them under the Wetlands Protection Act. You can't extend determinations. So this is just something that is more restrictive under the bylaw. We're saying ORADs cannot be extended, and I'm okay with that, because I always think that wetlands will change, you know. An ORAD, all an ORAD can approve is a delineation. It's not for work, it's just for the delineation. And after 3 years, I kind of feel like things should be redelineated. How do you guys feel about that?
Just to play devil's advocate, we could renew it, but we could require a review of the area to see if it had changed.
Mm-hmm. An
Wow.
update, kind of a delineation update kind of thing.
Right, yeah, and that would allow the applicant to not have to go through the expense of the notification and submittals and things like that. So I do know that's done in other towns. Um, and if the commission doesn't like the delineation, we can always refuse to renew it.
Yeah, I do like that. Oops. This isn't exact language, but I'm just making a note, and I can go in and add, maybe, maybe have the first sentence just say that determinations can't be extended. Small projects, which is the next one, can't be extended. And then maybe say we could have order conditions first, which is 15.3, and then add a new one for ORADs that they can be extended. Maybe even a site visit is required, and
Vote of the commission.
yeah. And they would have to say written submittal. Um, okay.
Not sure why we are limiting small project permits to just 1 year.
Um, I think it's because, I, my opinion would be that it's because we didn't require them to, do any public notification. You know, there's no abutter notification, there's nothing, there's no legal ads. Um, it's a very simple, you know, application. So there's not as much investigation into it before you issue the permit, I guess.
I'm kind of thinking about the floating buoy thing that we never quite resolved.
Yeah,
So then you're placing a weird onus on people to have to come back every year, you know, and renew a buoy permit, say that they're putting out for safety. They could choose not to do it because it's $25 a smacker, you know, for the whatever the project, and you know, there goes the safety value.
yeah. Um, I guess my thought on that is that I think we do need to look back at that whole buoy thing. Because when I think of a small project, sort of like what's coming tonight, tree removals, and you know, a small project that you want to do in your yard, and so we're giving them a way to do it without going through the whole application process. You know, you're not even sending your application to DEP, it's just coming to us. um so I guess I think the 1 year seems right for small permits. I'm wondering if the buoy, it sounds almost more like, I don't know, that's such a weird thing.
I'm reluctant to push that into a bigger category, even more reluctant to push it into a, you know, bigger, more expensive category.
Yeah,
I mean, they come and they go. They're, you know, they're in there for 3 months. So, you know, maybe you got a special thing for buoys. I don't know, you know, something
that's
like
what
that.
I'm wondering, if we do something.
All right.
Because
I
it's
mean,
a,
I can
because it's
go. I get the tree thing. I get small things. Someone's putting in a shed, you know, how many years do you need to do it?
the buoy thing is very different than anything else because it's annual,
Yeah.
you know?
And it's very,
Most
very
of the
small.
projects that most projects that you're permitting under this whole process, under Wetlands Protection Act and everything, are often a one-time shot. You know, you're doing a deck, you're doing your driveway, they're not something that you do every single year like that. That
Yeah.
almost seems like a license kind of thing to me. You know, you get and you just re-up your license every year to have your buoy,
Like a dog license.
right?
Yeah. All right.
The
We can
buoy
let that
thing is,
drop for now.
yes, that I think that what we're talking about belongs more in the section with the floats and stuff. We'll have to think more a little bit about that. Order condition expires in 3 years. Commission may extend order conditions one or more times for periods of up to 3 years each. No permit may be extended for more than 6 years from the date first issued. So that means that, yeah, so that, I guess if we renewed it twice, you could really only renew or extend them 2 times. Actually, only, wait, the permit may be extended. No permit, so that's really only one.
One
If it was,
reissue.
yeah, it was only one, you can only, but then right here it says one or more times. But that would be only if you extended it less than 3 years. That, I don't like the way that's written.
And I wonder about that. I don't know, you know, sometimes it takes forever to build a house. They run into obstacles, whatever. Then they have to do the whole banana again.
Well, and my thing is, why would we extend it for less than 3 years? You know, you give somebody a permit for 3 years, they come back after those 3 years, you give them another 3 years. I find it would be confusing for us to start writing extensions where we're changing the length of the extension. It's like if you get an extension, it's for 3 years.
we don't do much of that anyway. I don't remember doing it at all. But if
No,
somebody needs it, I don't know why we would say you can't have it. If there's some grand awful and they've been approved and they're moving forward and something happens, it seems to
yeah, under
me,
the state, there's, well, and this doesn't really list it, does it? Maybe it does. Yeah, the extensions require the following. So this is out of the Wetlands Protection Act where, you know, if you want an extension, you submit your paperwork 30 days before your permit's gonna expire. Plus, there's some things that you have to kind of prove that you've done so far. Um, number one would be that you're not completely impacting a wetland, you know. If you've started your project, it's not done yet. It's been 3 years, but you've had like 4 enforcement orders and you're not, you know, like there are reasons why you wouldn't want to extend a project. Extensions require the following. Now that's a site visit. Resources are still flagged. Site must be in full compliance with existing permit. Right. No outstanding enforcement orders. Um, information must be provided regarding any changes in resource areas. Right. And so this is actually what I remember from the state regs is we can deny a request for an extension if no work has begun on the project, except where such failure is due to an unavoidable delay. Where there's new information not available at the time the permit was issued. So again, somebody comes forward and they're like, we'd like to extend our permit. Um, but we're also like, you know, enlarging the project by 100%. Can we just extend our permit? You know, it's like, no, wait a minute, you've just added a whole lot of new stuff to this project. You need to reapply for another NOI. So there's that kind of stuff that happened in Amherst. Where incomplete work is causing damage to values of the bylaw. So anyway, those are there, that's all in there, why you might want to not do an extension. Um, I guess I don't get why we would want to do in less than 3 years. That seems kind of strange, just sort of confusing to me.
yeah.
I just, over the years, I've had people say, I only need 6 months to finish the project. I only want a 1 year extension. And maybe they're doing that to convince the bank or something that they're going to get it done by a certain time. But I have had people specifically ask for a 1, 2, or 2 year extension. It doesn't really matter. It's just something that, I've observed happen.
Yeah, it just to me, and that's fine. We can leave it in there. I just see it being more of a paperwork confusion thing. You know, you're like, oh wait, we gave an extension to that project. Wait, now wait, did we give them a 6 month extension? And you have to go back and like and look and stuff. But it does give the commission options to do whatever length they want. Um, and nothing can be more than 6 years. I think that makes sense too. After 6 years, I think they should just submit another notice of intent. What do you guys think?
Um, I think the ability to extend a permit um, uh, beyond the 6 years, there are times when that is helpful. So say it's a treatment of herbicide in a pond or something like that. Things don't necessarily change. Um, and you may want to keep that going as long as everything stays the same, simply by
Hmm.
renewing it as opposed to requiring them to refile.
Yeah, that's a good example. Great example. Um, so do you guys want to just get rid of this whole thing? I um I feel like I want to look at the state regs to see if they have a limit for how many times you can renew.
Yeah,
extend
check
the
it, and if
permit.
they don't, I'm happy with leaving that off.
All right, I'm gonna take it off and then,
And it certainly doesn't require that we grant extensions. The commission is always in the driver's seat to say no.
yeah, and all that, it's all down here. It's, this document spells out that we have the right to say no. So we kind of looked at this already. Oops. If issued, the extension order shall be approved and signed by the majority of the commission and recorded. All right. Project changes and permit amendments. If an applicant seeks to make a change to a permitted project, consult with the commission chair. That's me. Any such request of is the same lesson and work. No permit changes shall be approved for an expired permit. Definitely true. Procedures for amended order of conditions. Submit something in writing. Discuss at a regular meeting. Commission first shall determine, we've done this a bunch of times. First the commission determine whether the request warrants the filing of a new notice of intent. So if whatever change they're proposing is significant enough. And then, the commission may determine that the project change is minor only if the purpose of the project, so the purpose hasn't changed, the scope hasn't increased, project still meets relevant standards and the regulations, resource areas are still protected, and the potential for erosion may not be increased. Okay. That's fine for me. It's just said to be not minor. An applicant intends to continue to pursue the modification that shall not issue an amendment, but instead require filing a new notice of intent. Ministerial question, no obvious mistakes.
Do we mean by ministerial administrative?
Yeah, I was wondering what that word was.
Yeah, I don't really know what it means.
I kind of like the idea. I could get like a black shirt with a white collar.
No,
Yeah,
then you have
right?
to wear a robe, Bob.
I like that even better.
Eh.
You're our official minstrel. Administrative correction of obvious mistakes. Yep, so they don't even need to come for that. So if the commission feels like an amendment's all right, the applicant at their expense has to do public hearing notification requirements. Yep.
So then we get down to the 16.3.6. We just said you were gonna check and maybe get rid of that under no circumstances will the issue, maybe we don't need to be that punitive in that line.
Under no
Maybe they
circumstances.
can have an extension.
Of an amended order of conditions extend the effective date of the original. The amended order shall run with the term of the original. Well, so this isn't an extension, this is an amendment. And that's how the state does it. So we can't be less restrictive than that. That's the state says, you're asking for an amendment. We're giving you your amendment, but your date when your permit's going to expire isn't going to change.
So they
You
have
can
to be
come
two
back for an
separate,
extension.
they have to be two separate actions.
Yeah, an amendment versus an extension.
Okay.
They're different, yeah. Because an amendment kind of indicates you're changing what you're doing. An extension is just saying, we still want to do what we got permitted, we just haven't finished it yet. You know, when somebody's asking for an extension, they're not changing the project. You know, they're just asking for more time to do it. Whereas an amendment,
Unless the change is because something you're doing is proving not to be, workable.
yeah, then you'd have to do an amendment.
Yeah,
You definitely have to do an amendment anytime you're changing the work, um and it's not just a minstrel problem.
yeah, that,
If it's a real change, you have to do an amendment.
yeah.
The amended order shall be issued on the form provided. Hmm. With the insertion of, oh yeah, the order condition form. Um, I think that's kind of a silly comment, but, and didn't we already say it had to be recorded? Maybe not. All right, enforcement. I guess it's 7 o'clock. So maybe we stop here and pick up maybe later tonight or next time at enforcement.
Okay.
All right, so I already opened this meeting at 6 for looking at the regs, but I'm just gonna open it again for the official meeting at 7 o'clock on May 22nd, 2025. And I'm opening this meeting of the Shutesbury Conservation Commission. The meeting's being recorded. All right, first on our agenda is comments from the chair. All I have is that we're pulling together all the signatures for the Whiteman CR. The select board signed it this week, and then there was a specific page for Rita to sign. So we've got that done, and those got notarized. And then ours, I think now, Jan, Mayor, and I have all signed it. Mayor, did you go back and?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that it could be notarized for each person. And so it would be great if Bob and Scott could also sign it. If you get a chance, Bob. I think so. We've got all the signatures we need. But I'll give you and Scott, like, what's today's Thursday, maybe a week, next Thursday, by next Thursday. See if you can get up there and get it done. I know Scott's away, so I'll have to check in with him and see if there's any chance he could get there before, like, next Thursday. How about you, Bob?
Yeah, I can certainly get to Shutesbury. I just need to make sure that I can overlap with the clerk for the notarization.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, how about, well, I'll just say, and Mateo's there listening, next Thursday can be the cutoff because we only need a majority to sign, and we have, the three of us have signed, but because it's a CR, I just think it would be nice to have everybody's names on there. So if you can get there by next Thursday, great. I'll let Scott know the same thing. And then I need to look into a little bit, Mateo, which department and who we should package it up and mail it to at the state, but I think it's got everything it needs. I sent you one email, Mateo, with a question about it, but we're getting close.
Did
Getting
Donna
very-
review the final?
Yes. Yep. She reviewed the whole thing. All right, and the only other announcement I had was just town meeting, May 31st. I think I've said it a couple times, the CPA articles that the Concom applied for with the CPA funding will be voted on. And so it'd be great if everybody could come. And Mateo, those are later in the meeting, you had said?
Yeah, they're sort of halfway through. The CPA articles will be in the 20s, and there are 46 articles.
Woo.
Yeah. It'll be fast, though. I have great confidence in the moderator.
Hey, you guys are like power couple. You're like the Shutesbury power couple.
It's exhausting.
Exhausting. We needed a power couple. I love it. All right, moving on is review and vote on the minutes of May 8th. Did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes of May 8th? All right, does anybody have comments or changes? No, I don't see anybody, so I will take a motion to approve the minutes of May 8th.
So moved.
I'll second.
Great. And roll call, Jan,
Aye.
Mayor,
I,
Bob,
Aye.
and me. Aye. I went with first names that time. Why not? All right. Next, we have site visits update. Do you have anything, Jan?
We had two on May 13th. The first one was the library. There was nothing, well, there was some weird stuff. They had put in place one of the giant holding tank for the floor drains inside the building, and when they did it, they were mixing cement and stuff. So the water inside the settling ponds had gone cloudy, and they said it was from that project. We'll go with that. The grass is sprouting, and when I went by the other day, it was even thicker than when I'd been there, so that's good where there is grass sprouting. But the wattles along the western boundary are at risk again. They had, you may recall, dug them out, and they replaced in a couple of spots different segments of the boundary. But if that sediment's moving, it's moving. And, you know, I haven't gotten that much water at my house today in the rain. But like you said, there was some more over the weekend, and that strip along the edge of the library is mostly mud, and there wasn't much grass thinking about coming up at all there. So I suggested that they dig it out, or again, throw another wattle on top. And I think, you know, they would really like to let that, you know, run out to the end, so that when they can finish the landscaping, they could just finish the landscaping. But this may bite them in the butt. That's all I'm saying. And I'm scheduled to go out next Tuesday again. So
Good. I'm glad you're staying on top of it. Have they given any idea of how much longer the project's going to go on? Like, when will they be getting to the landscaping? End of summer?
notice this week I seem to go by more often than I usually do, and they were digging the drains, the whole drainage system by the trailers along the road that goes into that one pool that has like no capacity anymore. They were plumbing that segment this week.
Okay.
So, you know, I mean, it's obviously on the scoreboard, but when they finish is anybody's guess. They've still got to put in the electric line, so that's going to involve digging from the road back to the building. That's in a zone that isn't very risky. And after that, you know, they've got to go around the building and put the siding on, and they got to go around the building and put the roof on. But you'd think they could do, well, they're probably going to do that with big machinery, you know? So trouble is in the offing.
So it sounds like pretty much all the drainage has now been connected. You said
I don't know that for sure, but they were working on finishing at least that last outer part that I think was the remainder.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's some stuff over towards the entrance, though,
Hmm.
under the trailers.
What time are you going on Tuesday?
1 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Would you like to go at a different time?
That would be helpful.
And when would
Yeah,
that be?
I would, I could get back here by 2:30 to go, if that's helpful. I mean, if that's open.
You want to say 3 o'clock?
Okay, sure, yeah,
I will, I'll double check and I'll confirm with you, okay?
okay, yeah.
They don't really
Um,
care, but they like to know in advance.
Okay. So Tuesday the 27th at 3. Okay.
So, and I mean, we've told them, right, that if something happens, something sort of catastrophic, meaning like we get a big storm and those wattles don't hold what they're supposed to hold, and sediment gets over into the wetlands, that we can issue them an enforcement and they'll have to clean it up and it'll be a big, they know that, right?
They do. I don't know
Okay.
how much risk is really there ultimately, because it really is a strip of dirt next to the building. The trouble is the building is draining onto that strip. And that sort of exacerbates the rainfall problem. Otherwise,
but
I
you,
think the ground is absorbing more, and the grass is growing and things are going sort of the way they should.
okay,
I have my fingers crossed for them. I don't know. They're running the horses and I'm just watching.
maybe what they need is a little sunshine.
We
Help the
all need
grass
that.
grow, cause less
Okay, so
erosion.
our other site visit, Mayor and I went over to our project that we're going to talk about today. We've got the RDA on the list. Michael Murphy's property on 98 Lake Drive. We can let him do the presentation if you like.
Yeah, sure. Why don't we, so at 7:15, we still have to wait 5 more minutes. Sorry, Michael.
Mayor did post the
But-
pictures, right?
I
For
did
everybody
send
to
the
look at, yeah.
photos, yeah. I don't know if I sent them the right way, but that's,
You
I
did, yeah,
saw
I
'em.
got it. It's
Yep.
there.
okay.
I got them too. So
Awesome.
yeah, why don't we wait about 5 more minutes and we can talk about it and look at the photos and all that. That sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay.
And
that is
also,
all.
with number 8, unanticipated business, I'm gonna talk about the Baker Road culvert. So I did some site visits to that, and so we can talk about that at that point. So is that it, Jan, for
That's
site
all I
visit?
have, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't do any other site visits. Next on the agenda is land management update. Scott's not here. I don't think there's really been anything. Except for what we'll be voting on at town meeting, which is exciting.
Yeah, I do have a question about that. Are we voting on all of those CPA articles separately?
Yeah, right, Mateo? They're each their own application.
Yeah, so the first 5 articles are procedural, and we've actually requested a consent agenda, so we don't have to vote on each one individually. But the 6 new grants, including the 2 to the Conservation Commission, are going to be taken individually.
Okay.
Good. I hope we get to them by 10.
Me too.
Yeah.
Can I just add one thing under land management update?
Yes.
That Scott has been reaching out to the highway department about building that parking area at the West Quabbin Conservation Area. So hopefully that will be addressed. It would be great if that's done over this summer, but it's good that we're going to the highway department because I think that'll be a cost savings for the town.
Yeah. No, I think that was a good plan too. And hopefully they'll have time this summer, the highway department, to do it. All right, I don't think I have anything.
Sorry, I wish I could fill up the time with you. I don't.
Got 2 minutes. This is just, to fill in the 2 minutes, Mateo, for our June 12th meeting, which is that's our next meeting. Can you put on an administrative approval discussion for Miriam DeFont? 74, is she at 74 Pratt Corner Road? I'm gonna say that's right, but it's to approve her vernal pool. Bob, did you ever go out there at all to look at her vernal pool? Oh, you're muted.
It does have chorusing, so it would be a vernal pool.
It does have
Okay.
what?
I think somebody wants
You
to
could
come
hear
in.
frogs peeping and chirping. So that's generally is considered evidence of being a vernal pool. Um, which is to say the reproduction of amphibians. So the and I'm not quite sure, but you wanted the commission to attest that it was a vernal pool before it is certified. So, which she has sought out certification, and based upon a review of the documents that she sent the state, it likely will be approved by the state as well.
Right. And I was talking to her that, the administrative approval is good for a year. We were just talking about that. And she thought that was enough time to hopefully get it certified by the state. And then also she may be doing another project apparently, a year from now or so, and then would be having, I think, her yard delineated again, or the delineation updated. She's had it delineated before, so she thought a year was okay
Okay.
for, so, so we'll look at that at our next meeting. All right, it's now 7:15, so we can open the public hearing for RDA for 98 Lake Drive deck. And Michael is here.
Okay, so since I'm a first timer doing something like this, what do you want me to do?
If you could describe the project to us,
Okay.
and sort of, yeah, tell us what you're doing and where the resource area is. I'm assuming it's the lake.
Yeah.
Yep, and that
Okay.
kind of, yep.
All right. Thank you. And thanks for making time tonight, everybody. And thanks, Jan and Mayor, for coming over and allowing me to get there right at 4 o'clock, maybe 4:01. So I drove in from Sudbury. So yeah, the lake house is 98 Lake Drive. And what we would like to do is expand the deck on the lake side of the house. So there's a deck on the front of the house facing the lake. I believe the deck ends today at around 78 feet or something along those lines. It's in between the 50 and 100, but it's closer to 100 feet. And what we've asked is the ability to expand it up to 12 feet out toward the lake. And we haven't done the plans yet, but my thought is we would expand it probably 8 feet and then maybe have a cutout on one side, an additional 4 feet that could either accommodate a table for seating or maybe a cooking area. And the way the deck is set up right now, it extends from the end of the house out 8 feet right now. And then there's a stairwell that goes down across the front, the lake side of it, that's an additional 4 feet. And what we would do is replace that stairwell and move it over to the side of the house next to the driveway and have it come down the side of the house. So we would really be, if I ask for 12 feet, up to a full 12 feet, 4 feet of it is that stairwell going down the front of the deck already, which would be moved. So we wouldn't be going beyond, we'd be going using that 4 feet plus probably another 4 to 8 feet to expand the deck. And then I think when we talked about at the site visit, I a couple of things. One, I've learned a little bit more about the pilings and digging up earth and all that stuff. I think we would expect to use those helical piles. I still need to do some research, but Mark down the street has used them. So we need to figure out how much that cost and, where we would get that contracted from. But that would be our intent, to use those helical piles as opposed to cement foundations. And then, Jan, I think you also asked a question. We've got a big oak tree that's probably about 20 feet out from the deck today, maybe 15 to 20 feet. We wouldn't go, we keep the tree, obviously, so we wouldn't disturb the tree at all. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
So with all those measurements in the end, how close will the new deck be to the lake bank approximately?
Rough measurements are probably 60 to 65 feet,
Okay.
well short of the 50 feet for sure.
Yeah, that house is set back further from the lake than its neighbors, correct?
That's correct, yeah. Especially the Lawlers on our east side. The Keens is also not set back as far, but I don't think it's up as close as the Lawlers.
All the work is outside the 50-foot zone, but
Yes.
within the 100-foot.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, and so it sounds like you're gonna use the helical piles. Just with everything going on, what kind of equipment, would you need any large equipment to come around the side of the house? And if it came around, is there a spot for it to come and not cause rutting and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, maybe Jan, you can help me here, but we have a driveway that comes down to the end of the house. I think it probably comes down to the end of the deck even. Maybe it's a little short of the end of the deck. So we would bring the equipment, whatever we need, the auger, we would bring it down the driveway and then turn the front of the deck and work the pilings from there. And that's all pretty, it's sandy soil, but it's firm ground there for sure. It has grass and it's fully
Yes,
grass.
great grass.
Yeah.
Great grass. I don't think you would expect a lot of soil churning or anything there. I think you could do it pretty safely.
Okay, good. And then is any erosion control proposed? The commission typically requires something like a filter tube or a straw wattle, which are those tubes that are full of mulch or something that you kind of lay between where the work's going to happen in the resource area, just in case there happens to be some open soil and then a rainstorm. And so we require that. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, I need to work through all that with the Billy Samansky, who's going to be doing the construction of the deck. He's the one that actually built the house back in 2000. But yeah, we had planned to put that protection down below the construction area for sure.
Okay. Great. And so your determination will come with the condition, and that will be one of the conditions that just says that erosion control gets installed, and then also that you let the commission know once it is installed so that we can come and just take a look at it and make sure that it's placed in the right spot and it's going to be protective. So that's like a little inspection that has to happen before work can start.
Okay.
Just so you know about that. I was kind of hoping we could share the photos. So Mary, you sent them, right? So if I look in my email, we can maybe see them. If I can find them.
And while you're pulling those up, I guess as I'm working, I'm sure Billy Samansky knows all this stuff. But if we have any questions when we're putting the erosion control stuff down and all that, I'm assuming we can reach out to somebody here and just make sure we're putting it in the right place.
Yeah, yep. You can send an email just to the whole commission and we'll respond. I'll respond.
Okay.
So this is your lawn. It's a lovely lawn.
Well, thank you. It always looks better in the spring. But yeah, so this is from in front of the fence, in front of the deck, facing the lake. Um,
Oh, there we go.
and that's looking back up at the log cabin. So I haven't done the exact measurements, but I don't think the tree is probably, I would say 60 feet from the lake. And then as you can see that front stairway, that's the stairway we're going to move around to the side of the deck. There's a walkway along the eastern side of the log cabin um, that gets to the front door and then also exits out to the driveway. And there's a little cutout by where the chimney is. So there's a like 3 or 4 feet out cutout there. We would just extend the stairway from that cutout down that side of the deck. And then you can see a little bit of the driveway.
Mhm.
It's funny, I don't,
Did a closer photo.
oh, good.
Oh, do we?
Because I, now that I'm,
No.
there's
Nope,
Grace.
I just see
Nope.
three.
I guess I didn't. So
So yeah, so this is, you have ample opportunity for just to put a row of the erosion control, maybe
Yep.
just on the opposite side of this tree. It can just kind of go across the grass there
Okay.
between where the work's gonna happen and the lake. Um, all right. Last picture's that. There's your dog.
It's actually the Lawler's dog, Gracie. But she likes to come to our yard to go to the bathroom. Smart dog.
Nice of them to share.
Yeah, they never go in their own yards.
Right.
All right, I don't have any more questions. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, it seems like the nature of the project itself, helical piers supporting a deck is rather de minimis, and that it has a good distance from the lake. It seems like it's very little um, of a vector for impeding the values of the resource area.
I agree. Writing down. Right, do we have any questions or comments from the public? Nope, I see none. All right, so then I take a motion to close the public hearing.
So motion,
second.
Okay, Fox,
Aye.
Rowan,
aye.
Douglas,
Hi.
and Wilson, aye. And I also take a motion, because I'll no more discussion or anything, a motion to issue the determination with the conditions that erosion control is installed and inspected prior to the project beginning.
So motioned.
Second.
Okay, Douglas,
Hi.
Fox,
Aye.
Rowan,
Aye.
and Wilson. Hi. All right, so that's our whole process. And we'll be getting you your determination, which is sort of a written permit some point next week.
Okay.
And it'll have those conditions on it about putting in the erosion control and then getting back in touch with us when you need it inspected. Do you have any other questions for us?
I will right after I hang up.
Well,
Now, and thanks, Mateo, for your indulging me when I was trying to figure out how to even fill out the form because I've never tried to do anything like this before. So I appreciate all of your help.
Mateo. Right, yeah, and feel free to reach out. Mateo's a great contact for any questions you have, because he can get in touch with us if he needs to, or, he can answer a lot of stuff, so.
Yeah, I didn't know what he was talking about when he first responded to me with the first email, but after I started reading some of the stuff, I kind of started understanding a little better. So hopefully I'm a work in progress. So
You did a great job.
okay.
And I
All
think that
right.
roughly 3/4 of the folks on the screen are a quick walking distance from your home. So
That's what I understand now. So okay. Well, thank you everybody. Really appreciate it.
Great, thank
Good
you.
luck.
Have a
Okay.
good night.
Okay.
Bye.
You too. Take care.
All right. Next on the agenda is the administrative approval request for 681 Rendell Road tree removal. And I see Ron is here. Hi, Ron.
Well, thanks everybody for, good evening, and thanks everybody for some of your time to think about this small project. We've been, we've lived in this house for 32 years, and we've got 13 and a half acres, and we've never taken down any large live trees. So we really don't want to even take these trees down, but we've got to the point that several pines are getting very large, like approaching 100 feet, if not more, and very close to the house. And we're getting a little worried that they're going to fall and land on the house. So this project is for 5 of these trees that are within that 50 to 100 foot zone from a wetland. And this is a wetland that drains into Ames Pond, which is part of the Brightwater Bob Kestrel Trust property. So basically that's it. The trees aren't necessarily compromised, although one of them is dead. But if they show some evidence of compromise, according to our landscaper who does our snow plowing also. And if they were let to go further, he couldn't use his lift to take them down. He said we'd have to bring a crane in there to do that to keep them away from the house. So we don't want to get to that point. So that basically that's the scope of the project, and be willing to answer any questions you folks might have.
So I did a site visit for this one, and Ron showed me where the trees are, and they're sort of on an elevated plateau where the house is, and then there's a big slope that goes down to the wetland, and they are pretty far from the wetland, and between where they are and the wetland is all wooded. So there's plenty of trees in the area. And yeah, so I feel like, did you say that they're gonna take them down by hand? I can't
No,
remember what you
he
said.
has a 75-foot lift that he would just to bring in there along that, the edge of the lawn. And then he would go up and he'd actually climb the trees, climb and take them down. So that, yeah, they're coming down by hand as after he climbs and takes them down section by section. So each one is a pretty complex project. I didn't realize it was going to take as long as he says, but that's what's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah. All right, and you said one of them, he said, was compromised. And the others are getting closer to being.
Yeah, there's a small one that's dead. It's one of the 5. The others are approaching 2 feet in diameter, about a foot and a half, something like that.
Mhm. All right, and I don't know again if we talked about erosion control. Or if it's even really needed in this case, since you're taking them down by hand. I don't know, how does the rest of the commission feel about that?
yeah, Bob here. I would say that one of the times one of the things I've learned over the years is that large trees like pine trees can cause a lot of damage. So I my I would defer to the safety aspect of things and uh, encourage the removal of the trees.
Mhm. Is everybody okay with not requiring erosion control? The reason I almost say it is because being there's sort of this selection of trees that Ron wants to take out, but then there's other trees behind them, even up on the elevated area before you start heading down the slope. So I'm trying to figure out how he would sort of feed erosion control between those trees. I just don't know if it's really necessary in this situation.
So the ones that are gonna be cut are on a flat.
Yeah, they're up by the house.
So,
Yes,
you
that's
know, unless
correct.
it's really wet or weird. You can probably get away
Are
with
you
that.
at the end of like, are you at the end of that road and then there's kind of a roundabout for your driveway and you have a German Shepherd?
That's us.
Okay, I've been there
Yep.
before. Okay, I
Yep,
know the
yep.
property. Yeah, no, I'm okay.
Okay. Bob and Jan, you guys okay with not including erosion?
Yeah, it sounds like the erosion control wouldn't really do much if there already is kind of a vegetated buffer. So as long as the workman understands that he's not to venture past a certain point, which is clear that that would happen because of that cover, I don't see any reason to put in hay bales or sedimentation controls.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah, I have no more questions. Does anybody else have any questions for Ron? No, Ron, do you have any questions for us?
No, just the process.
Process, if this is approved, I assume we would go ahead with the work and then I assume there'd be an inspection after it's done. Is that typically how this works?
Yeah, well, next week you'll get some paperwork, sort of like the actual written up approval. And since we're not requiring erosion control, we don't need to do sort of a pre-inspection. But yeah, it would be good for you to let us know when the work is done and somebody will come out and just check it out.
Sure, okay. No other questions?
Thanks.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for contacting us and good luck with your project.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is,
Sorry, Beth,
Um,
be a vote on the,
all right, we have to vote. I will take a motion to approve and issue the administrative approval for the tree removal.
So motion.
So, second,
Okay, Rowan,
Aye.
Fox,
I
Douglas,
Hi.
and Wilson. Aye. Great.
You all very
Thanks,
much.
Ron.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, so next is unanticipated business. And I wanted to just talk about the emergency cert a little bit. So we had that big rainstorm on Saturday. And the way I understand it is that a resident reported to DPW on, I believe, Tuesday that this culvert had collapsed. And what I saw was it looked like about a third of the road, that end of the culvert. So this is Baker Road, very close to West Pelham. So it would be the southern side of the road. That end of the culvert had completely collapsed, and so about a third of the road went with the culvert. So DPW left the Concom voicemail, and I don't know who else. I know Jan heard it. I didn't end up hearing it until Tuesday night, but I think Jan, you went out there on Tuesday and sent a picture. But anyway, they let us know and they wanted to get right out there Wednesday and start work. So I put the emergency cert together and got it to them by Wednesday morning so that they could do that. And It's one of Shutesbury and Shutesbury's beautiful rock culverts. There's so many of these great rock culverts in Shutesbury, which I mean, now I'm starting to appreciate them even more. They're so beautiful to look at, but then also they're so open, you know, they're so much bigger than so many of the piped culverts that are, for example, in Amherst and that we're trying to replace all the time with concrete box culverts. These almost rectangular, tall rock culverts are really open. They meet the stream crossing standards. They're so anyway, and this is a perennial stream. It's part of, it merges with another stream on the other side of Baker Road, and then they go together. It goes under West Pelham as Dean Brook. And on the other side of West Pelham, it's pretty large by that point. So these are high flowing streams. Anyway, they got out there Wednesday. I stopped in around 10 or so in the morning on Wednesday, and they were in there moving large rocks. They were able to find a really large slab that they used as a roof, which was great. And they completely rebuilt it. I think I shared the picture with you guys that was from this morning. I stopped there again on my way to work this morning, and it was done. And which is great, because when I went there on Wednesday, they were sort of still trying to figure out how to do this, and they weren't even sure if they were going to be able to do it, but they did it. So anyway, that's the story. Do you guys have any questions?
It looked like
No.
they did a good
I'd like
job.
to say, sorry, I'd like to say, Beth, thank you very much for reacting so quickly to that, getting out there. And thanks for sending the pictures. It was great to see how quickly they did that. And we have a typhoon on the way. And congratulations to you and the Shutesbury DPW for taking care of what could have really been a disaster.
Yeah, they were worried about today because, you know, we ended up not getting as much rain today, but, you know, parts of Massachusetts got a lot of rain today, and it looked like maybe we were going to get more. And yeah, it's weird weather, that's for sure. Okay, so what we need to do is vote to just ratify the emergency cert. So I need a motion to ratify the emergency cert for the Baker Road culvert replacement or repair, sorry.
So motioned.
Okay,
Second.
great. Rowan,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Douglas,
Hi.
and Wilson. Aye. All right. That's all that's on our regular agenda. Do you guys want to go back and continue to work a little bit longer on the regulations? Or are people done since we've been chatting for an hour and 40 minutes?
We could do a little more.
That sound okay, Mayor and Bob?
Sure.
All right. Okay, enforcement. No person shall do these things without a permit. Conservation Commission have the authority to enter property for the purpose of enforcing the bylaw. Examination, surveys, sampling, whatever we need to do. Subject to the constitutions and laws of the United States and the Commonwealth. Save as deemed necessary. Yeah, I kind of like how that's written. We have the authority, yet we need to follow laws that basically say we can't just go on to people's property. But at the same time, if they fail to grant us access for such things as like an enforcement, we well, or even just an application, we can deny the application, we can deny like an NOI application. We can deny a permit if they're not gonna let us look. And we can issue enforcement orders. Without having like walked on the property if nobody's gonna let us walk on the property. We have the authority to enforce the bylaw and regulations and permits. Any person who violates may be ordered to restore the property to the original condition. Okay. That's just weird. On request of the commission, the select board or town council. May take legal, oh, I see. The select board or the town council may take legal action for enforcement under civil law. We can request the chief of police to take legal action under criminal law. Protected powers shall have authority to assist the commission. Any person who violates shall be punished by a fine of $100 for the first offense, $300 every offense thereafter, each day or portion thereof during which a fine shall constitute a separate offense. Yes. Let me know if you see anything you don't like. Oops.
Is there no provision for warning people that they're doing something funky?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, $100 for the first offense is probably when they've gone beyond us just showing up and saying, oops. Sort of, it's what you're dealing with the contractors at the library. It's like you talk to them and talk to them. And in this case, you issue them, possibly you just issue them an enforcement. And if they still ignore that written enforcement, enforcements that I've issued before when I was in Amherst, the first enforcement is often just, we're issuing you an enforcement because you did blah, 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 blah. We're requiring you to come to a meeting. So that can almost be the first thing you say to somebody, you come to the meeting. And then the whole commission has a chance to talk about the situation and figure out what you want to do. Now, say the person just doesn't come to the meeting, say the person continues to ignore any further enforcement, written enforcements that get sent to them, then you can fine them.
So there's a fair period of scolding.
Yes, that's how I think you should do it. That's how I've seen it done before. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that would work better. I mean, everybody likes to have their hand chopped before they get fined or whatever, so. Okay.
Yeah, this just sort of gives us the power to do it if we want to do it. Issue citations. Specific pursuant to the criminal is in person shall be the chair. That's me again. Hmm.
I think it looks good and it looks strong, and there may be times where you do have to give applies to get people to comply, give fines to get people to comply. So I I think it's good.
Okay.
Is there a circumstance where you can say a time that you did use a fine? How often is that done?
Um, well, I was gonna say, since I've been Shutesbury, I haven't seen it, but in Amherst, I was the wetlands administrator for 8 years, and we probably had three, I think, enforcement situations where we had to fine people over 8 years. And there's a lot more applications in Amherst than in Shutesbury. So, it's not a very common thing at all.
I would say in Andover, we give out more, maybe um one every half year or so, and it's generally if there's been a blatant uh uh uh, uh uh, blatant flagrantly scoffing the law, cutting down a quarter acre of wetlands or something like that, we begin with an enforcement order, and accompanying that is a fine to get people's attention. And sometimes, if work is not done, then we have the threat to give a ticket every day, and oftentimes that just works toward getting people toward compliant in the extreme situations.
Yep. You just never know. But in Shutesbury, I doubt it'll happen much, but it's good to have the regulations behind you when you need to do something like this. Let's see, what does this say? When the commission determines an activity violation, the commission may issue an enforcement order or take other action necessary to achieve compliance.
Can I
Violations.
ask a question and it's sort of off to the side a little bit?
Mhm.
So the DPW had to do that culvert replacement, and I recognize they did the right thing. They called us, told us they had an emergency problem, and that they intended to work on it the next day. If we hadn't gotten back to them because we couldn't or something, and they went ahead and worked, that's fine, right?
It
They
is
had an emergency.
Yeah, to me, that's an emergency. So, and they notified us. And so if it was our fault that we didn't sort of respond to an emergency situation like that, respond to them reaching out to us with a phone call, that's a little on us. But that was an emergency,
Yeah,
no doubt,
yeah.
and they made the effort to reach out to us.
And so then it would be whenever they could get back to paperwork or whatever, and that would be appropriate for them, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a couple now with him. We did that other culvert, so I think he's aware of how the whole emergency certification process works, and that he does need to notify us
Yeah.
and give us a day to get that to him, for emergencies.
But did he need to wait?
I see fines so much more with people who are kind of blatant about what they're doing. They know they should be doing it differently, and they're not listening when the commission's saying, you need to fix this situation there. And they're just not listening, and they're really harming a wetland.
Right. So, but Dave didn't need to wait for your emergency certification to proceed, did he?
Yeah, he did. And I think he understands that now, because the phone call, he was just sort of like, we're going in tomorrow. And so I kind of wanted to jump on it and get it
Right. That's
done to him.
why I'm asking. He knew that we had a weather forecast that was going to put the project and the stream at greater risk if he had waited. So if you hadn't, if you had been out of town, you know, he could still have proceeded. I guess that's my question. He didn't need to wait for your paper. It could follow the task under the conditions. I mean, because I went out and said, oh, yeah, geez, yeah. You know,
Yeah, no, that was a real true emergency situation. And
Okay.
I think, yeah, he could have moved ahead with that.
Okay.
And we wouldn't have gotten mad at him. We wouldn't have issued him an enforcement or anything, you know?
Yeah, okay.
So, all right, so violations include but are not limited to failure to comply with a permit, basically, a final order or a determination, failure to complete work described in an order of conditions or a determination or an emergency cert, failure to obtain a valid order or extension permit prior to conducting an activity, making false, inaccurate, or misleading statements in any certification filed under the law. Okay. Failure to comply with any certification on previously approved project plans or failure to seek prior approval from the commission for any modification or amendments to previously approved plans prior to starting your work. Leaving in place unauthorized fill or otherwise failing to restore illegally altered land to its original condition or continuing in violation of bylaw. Activities outside the bylaw jurisdiction areas that, upon review of compelling evidence, are determined by the commission to have resulted in the removing, filling, dredging, discharging, blah, blah, of, or otherwise altering of a resource area specified above. Yeah. So that just comes under the, even though the actual work was done in an area outside our jurisdiction, so there may not have been a permit, but in the end, you damaged a wetland. We can issue an enforcement. The commission and its members, agents may enter upon privately owned land to perform their duties under the bylaw subject to constitutional limitations. We just said that. I think I liked it. I was written up here better than that. Authority to enter. Subject to the laws of the United States. And then here, yeah, this is written a little bit clearer. It covers everything. Maybe we can get rid of the other one. An enforcement order or other directive from the commission will outline remedial actions, including submission and reference after fact permits. Enforcement may include requirements for restoration. Enforcement order issued by the commission shall be signed by a majority of the commission. Commission chair. Ratified. Any person who purchases, inherits, or otherwise acquires real estate upon which work has been done in violation of the bylaw or in violation of any permit issued shall forthwith comply with any order to restore said land to its pre-violation condition. Criminal shall be brought against unless such action is commenced within 3 years following the recording of the deed. What? Say what? I understand the beginning.
The end.
Not the end. Shall forthwith comply with any order to restore said land to its pre-violation condition Provided, however, that no action, civil or criminal, shall be brought against such person unless such action is commenced within 3 years following the recording of the deed or the date of the death by which such real estate was acquired by such person. Boy, does anybody understand that?
Yeah, I think this mirrors the Wetlands Protection Act, which does say that you've got 3 years to catch up with somebody whose home was in violation. Um, and if you don't catch it in that amount of time after they acquire it, then you've lost your statute of limitations or something similar.
Makes sense, but
So,
it's
so
written though.
it's 3 years after a new person has bought the property, is that what that's saying?
That's how I
Yeah.
interpret it. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's similar language in the Wetlands Protection Act.
okay.
So if they get away with it for 3 years, they're good to go.
Essentially, yes, but there that was recently tested within the last 2 years, and if there is a violation, the commission can ask that it no longer can continue. So there's a couple little foibles to it, but I'd recommend keeping this language in, as it does mirror the Wetlands Protection Act, and I think it'd be more useful than it would be damaging.
I guess if it's in the
Yep.
Wetlands Protection Act, you can't do much about it, but it's kind of a funky rule. If you buy something and you're unaware because they didn't inform you, you bought it from an estate or something, how the heck are you gonna restore it to its former glory if you never saw it?
Well, in theory, if somebody is selling you a house in that's breaking a law, you have a civil action against them. But both the town and the state want to keep things whole, which is to say keep things compliant, as that is our duty. So um, that's the reason why it likely would be in there.
Tricky.
Yeah, it makes sense, because I mean, this comes up. It definitely comes up that somebody had a project and had a permit, but then they didn't finish and they sold the house, and it's halfway done, and there's, even damage to wetlands and stuff, and what happens with all of that. So,
Do we actually do any routine follow-ups? If somebody gets a permit, they have an order of conditions. Theoretically, they finish the project and they call us and we give them a certificate of completion, but I'm guessing that there's any number that last part doesn't happen. So
oh
do we
yeah,
have any follow-up system to, give them a jingle and ask whether they're done, or, at the end of the permit period?
yeah, again, it's all if we have the staff and the time to do it. Again, in Amherst, where there's a wetlands administrator, she follows up. I used to follow up on outstanding orders of conditions, is what you kind of call them. And you have your list, and you're sort of like, well, haven't heard anything about that project, but
Yeah.
the permit's expiring. I need to check in on it. So yeah, there is
Should be.
that. Yeah, it should be done. Yeah, it
And
definitely should be
then
done.
those things would be caught, so then you wouldn't have to, you wouldn't run into that, at least not as often.
Yeah, it's a good idea for a lot of reasons. One is because sometimes people don't realize that they need to extend their permit. And we were just looking at, there's that requirement that you need to file for your extension 30 days before your permit expires. So it's also a nice thing to do, to reach out and say, hey, your permit's about to expire. Are you done? You didn't get back in touch with us. Do you need a certificate of compliance? Where's your project at? That's it's all based on if you have time to do it. and staff or the commission has time to check up on them. So certificate of compliance, what time is it? 8:03. Should we keep going? Maybe we do one more section. Certificates of compliance. How about that?
Sounds good.
That sounds good.
Okay. So upon completion of, we were just talking about this, completion of the work, applicants need to file for a certificate of compliance. There's a state form that they fill out, and then we fill out their certificate of, when there's a form that we would issue to them. So they apply for it. There's a fee. Upon written request, the commission has 21 days to make a determination. Right, and so basically you're looking to make sure that all of the conditions in the order conditions were met. A site inspection needs to be made. After review, the work has been done in compliance. You can refuse to issue if it hasn't been done in compliance. Refusal shall be issued within 21 days. To be in writing, specify why it's being denied. You can also, yep, there's on the form, there's the option for a partial certificate of condition, which just means that then you list which of the conditions have been met. That is often helpful with larger projects. If a project has been completed in accordance with the plans, and with plans stamped by a registered professional engineer, architect, landscape, and surveyor, a written statement by the professional engineer certifying compliance with the plans. So it's sort of like as-built plans. Setting forth what deviation, if any, exists from the plans. Yep, that's all. That's what they have to submit. We reserve the right to administer the requirements of this paragraph, measuring with the nature, scope, type, and cost of the proposed project or activity. Okay. The final order condition contains conditions with continue past the completion of work, such as maintenance or monitoring. The certificate shall specify which conditions should continue. Specify what portions of the work are certified if it's a partial. And it shall be recorded. Certificate of court recording issued to us. That's it. Any questions?
I have one. So one of the last remaining things often on a project for us is removing the erosion controls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you wait till the grass grows or whatever, and then you can remove it. So if somebody says, I've got grass growing, can you come and see if it is in fact compliant? Somebody goes over and if you see the grass is growing, can they then take the controls out, or do they have to wait for the commission to meet and approve that?
Yeah, they should wait. So they should have the site visit where we come and say, oh, yep, looks like you're ready to submit for your certificate of compliance. So then they would submit the form and all the rest of it. And yeah, they shouldn't remove, I don't think they should remove the erosion control until we've kind of reviewed the whole project under a certificate of compliance and said that they've met everything. That's just how I feel about it. Because otherwise, in a way, you've kind of given them what they want, although they probably put the certificate of compliance closes out the order on their deed. So that's usually the real reason people want them.
Right. I mean, seems like if the vegetation is doing what it should be doing, which is what the erosion control was for, then you're there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess you're right. And it's not written in here. I think earlier on there was discussion of leaving erosion control in until the commission uh approves that the vegetation's grown in. Um, so maybe they don't actually need the certificate of compliance. They just need approval from the commission that we feel like the vegetation has
Yeah.
grown in enough that there's not erosion.
Something more complicated like the library, that might not be the case because they've got the ponds and all the other stuff that goes with it, but like Murphy's gonna build this deck and he's gonna put up erosion controls and probably want them down when he's done building because there probably won't be that much dirt. Seems like that's a no-brainer, but maybe it isn't.
Yeah, well, so his was just a RDA, so determinations don't get recorded. The determination is his permit to go and do what he needs to do. There's the conditions in there that'll say, put the erosion control and let us know so we can come and inspect it. But nothing's recorded, so there's no certificate of compliance needed with RDAs. They're only with NOIs and orders of conditions. So with that, in that case, with RDAs, it really is just based on whether or not the vegetation's grown in. There's not all these other requirements that are needed, like when you've got a full order of conditions under a notice of intent that's been recorded and everything. There's the requirement of the as-built, and there's the requirement of an architect signing off that you met all those, or an engineer that you met all of the conditions. So it's obviously for larger projects.
Yeah, although
And-
although I guess I'm just thinking simply where someone had to grow grass on a hill. Is it growing? Yes. Is it not growing? No.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just saying a lot of the smaller projects that are a determination or a small project permit, or, right now we're issuing administrative, those will go the way you're talking about because they don't require a certificate of compliance. But under an NOI, it would. But still, I see what you're saying. Say it's a, really large project that has different areas to it, and they've finished one area, and that area is completely vegetated and everything, and they kind of like to just get rid of the silt fence that's there.
Yeah.
But the whole rest of the project isn't done yet, so they're not applying for their certificate of compliance. I get it. And
Yeah.
I agree. What I can do is kind of look through and see if other spots in the regulations actually say, because I know that it definitely says you can't remove the erosion control until the commission has come to see if the vegetation is filled in. But I'm not sure if the actual language says until you're issued a certificate of compliance, like in other
Yeah.
parts of the regulations.
Yeah, I think I remembered that we have to go look, and that's okay, check, but yeah.
Yep. Well, it doesn't say it here in this section about the certificate of compliance. It doesn't say anything about erosion control, but I'll have to look back and see if there's other sections that say that.
Yeah.
All right, so we're up to emergency projects. We can do that. Next time. Do you guys want to meet again at 6 o'clock
Yeah.
on June
I would
12th?
I'd say yes, because I think we'll be able to finish, won't we?
Yeah, we should be
getting-
able to.
Yeah.
It's only like 23, is it 23 sections, something like that?
Um, yeah. 23. So yes, we are almost there. This is so exciting.
Are we meeting on July 3rd as well? I had that as a question. It's a Thursday. It's the first Thursday.
Let's see, we're meeting on in June is the 12th and the 26th. Nope, July, it would be July 10 and 24.
Okay.
Yeah, the second and fourth,
Second and
Thursday.
fourth.
second and fourth Thursdays.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know, send me emails of weeks you guys are, if you're going away on
Yep.
vacation and stuff. Let me
Okay.
know.
I'm covered. Like 20. Okay. Okay.
Awesome. All right, take a motion to adjourn.
So
So
motion.
moved. Second.
Somebody did that in some order. Okay, Rowan,
Aye.
Fox,
I.
and Douglas,
Hi,
and Wilson. Aye. All right, thanks, everybody.
Good
thank
night.
y'all. Good night.
Good night.